I gotta say, man, we spoil everything on this podcast, and so we're gonna eventually reveal the whole movie. But for me, if that was me at the end of this movie, human race is fucked. I would not have had the willpower to turn on that sexy space vampire.
You mean you would not have ended her and yourself in one foul?
If she was like, Cooper, come away with me, we'll rule the galaxy, I'd have been like, fuck yeah, when do we start?
Let's go.
Let's do it
right now.
Sorry, humanity. I'm going with this hot space vampire.
It was pretty heroic at the end for what he did, right?
Oh, I can't even. The restraint that man had. What a hero. Welcome to Bad Movies and Beer. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we have just given away the ending to the film we were talking about today, Lifeforce.
Yeah, I had never seen this before you shared it with me. This is the first time I have ever even heard of Lifeforce. I love the DVD. It's a Shout Factory release, one of our...
Oh, Steelbook, buddy.
Yeah.
We're going down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, beautiful. I guess we have a collaboration between British and American companies here.
I'm pretty sure it was filmed in Britain. American director is the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper. This was, I guess not super successful, and people kind of thought or hoped that it would be. And this was sort of in like a dark period in his career.
I mean, I've definitely seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre before. Like, so the original version, like the well-known.
The very first one.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I guess we'll have to sort of share what it's all about and whether we feel he should have got that derision at the end here. I did notice right away as we're getting into these really dramatic credits that it's the London Symphony Orchestra providing the music for this movie.
And what a soundtrack they provide.
Yeah, they do a really good job of using the symphony to create the sort of thriller/horror notes that flow throughout this sci-fi horror movie.
Well, even just the menus when you open the Blu-ray, it's what I would refer to as a classical banger. This is how serious, man. It's super good.
I wonder how often classical and bangers have been thrown together in a sort of lexicon of conversation. I feel like we weren't having Bach and Beethoven and others describing each other's music as bangers, but maybe I'm wrong.
Listen, man, you put this Blu-ray in your player. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what's up.
I don't disagree, but that's funny. So we're watching Lifeforce.
So yeah, we're gonna go through the movie. We're gonna spoil everything else in the movie, Lifeforce, and we are drinking a beer like we always do that relates in some way to the movie.
So today we got a beer called Chug Life.
Oh, why not, right? That's what those sexy space vampires do. They chug life, Noel.
Just suck it right out of their unwilling victims. It's got life in the title. It's got chugging the life. And this is from the Marz Community Brewing Company in Chicago, Illinois. This is an international beer.
My favorite city in the world, Chicago, Illinois. If/when COVID ever ends, I got a date with Chicago. Love Chicago, and I would love to visit this brewery. Seems like a really cool place. And if you look through like kind of like their website and see some of their past beers, they have brewed a ton of different stuff.
Yeah, this one seems like a pretty cool idea. Sparkling lager, which is a lager beer that also incorporates almost champagne style elements, I believe. We haven't broken into it yet, but I'm really excited to taste this thing. It's kind of different from some of the others we have explored in the past.
Well, and the can color is very similar to Miller High Life, which is, of course, the champagne of beers.
I think that's intentional, right? The art kind of makes it look like the champagne of beers, but in this one, they've actually incorporated champagne elements into it. Miller High Life being maybe your go-to or favorite in the past, I feel like that is
definitely.
If I think of a Cooper beer, it is a Miller High Life, and in fact, sometimes I drink clear bottles ones just so I can think about you.
There's no shame in that. Listen, there's no shame in loving the High Life. It is a high quality, affordable beer, and I do not regret enjoying it, as I often have.
No, it is delicious. All right, we're gonna crack this one open and get into the Chug Life. I just love that title, by the way. That's a great beer name. Oh, it's bubbly. She's on my lap.
Oh no.
You can hear the beer on my crotch as I laugh through this
right now.
We're off
to a great start here, man. Speaking of great starts, we begin this movie with some very ominous credits, and we get a crawl that says on August 9th, Space Shuttle Churchill, a joint British-American team on a mission to approach Halley's Comet. They are on course and on schedule. Now, a radar scan shows an object in the head of the comet. It appears to be alien, and we are just right into this movie.
Yeah. I kind of remember the time when Halley's Comet was a big thing. And I definitely don't remember any suggestions that there was alien life on board there. And very quickly, we figure out that a large part of Halley's Comet is an alien spaceship.
Yeah, so this crew, they want a radio for instructions, but the comet's tail is blocking all their transmissions. So they have to make the call, and they decide this is their only chance to investigate, literally, as the comet only comes like once every 76 years. So they're just out, and they're going into it. And we're like 3 minutes into this movie. Again, they're just diving right into the plot here. These are kind of some like so-so special effects as they float through what looks like a giant colon.
Yeah, I wrote down here that I felt like the inside of the shuttle shots, like as we have a team of astronauts up in space, they seem quite believable. Like they felt like they could be space technology of the time. The outside shots, though, the ones in space, not so much. Not believable, even in like the most imaginative dreams.
So it's the Moonraker problem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We very much get some Moonraker vibes. We're getting those sort of, was this 80s? We're getting the like early 80s? Or when was this one created?
Mid-80s, I believe, 1985.
All right, so we're moving on there almost towards the 90s, but we're getting some of that sort of science fiction and space technology, and it's probably budgetary as well.
Yes, so they eventually enter a large chamber that is filled with what appear to be giant bats. Now, these bats are all dead. They've been drained of all fluid. One astronaut like easily breaks a piece off, and they go to collect a specimen, but as they do, the alien ship releases something which, in their own words, can only be described as a giant umbrella.
Yeah, this is fucked up. They find this weird alien spaceship full of like human-sized bats, and they're just like, okay, let's go figure this out. Like, they're not scared at all. They're like, we gotta go in there. Would you fucking float up to a bunch of space bats?
Not knowing that they are all dead, no, I would not. I'd be like, well, guys, that's probably good for now. Let's get. Oh, they're also wildly outnumbered by the space bats. Although, again, they're all dead.
They don't seem scared, and they don't know they're dead until they get up to them, I felt like. I don't know. And then they decide to capture that specimen. Like you said, they grab the cheapest net I've ever seen in my life. And then, yeah, we get this weird, like, ship coming alive. And you're right, it looks like a giant umbrella. But then we also have a light pop on, and they're going directly into that light.
Well, sure, man. To your point, if they're not scared by this flock of giant bats, you're going to walk towards a bright light. They head towards it. They're deeper in the ship, and there is a room full of, like, crystals. And inside 3 of these crystals are bodies. Sexy, sexy bodies.
Yeah, this is weird. So they're moving towards it. They kind of head in, and they start to spin, but they see these crystallized bodies, and then the astronauts kind of freeze up.
Yeah, the commander of the ship is like strangely drawn to them, and he says,
"Something's happening to me. What's wrong with me? What's wrong?"
And I can answer that question. It's called lust.
Oh, I did write down here that he has a really creepy "she's perfect." So he sees the body of a woman inside one of these crystals, and that's the line he drops: "She's perfect."
That was one of the other crewmen.
Oh, okay.
One of the other crewmen said that he's been in space for 6 months.
Oh, and he's just so horn dog because he's been up there alone.
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's right.
So obviously they're not having sex in space. Is there a way for astronauts to take care of themselves to like release
well, I'm
some
sure
of
they
those?
can. Definitely they can. Yeah. Zero gravity, I would assume. That's, put that on your masturbation bucket list.
Would you be up there throwing whoops? Is that?
Are you kidding me? I mean, this is incredible. But now there's actually a female crew member with them, and she gives them a very scornful look after this exchange. I don't blame her. They decide to take all 3 of these sexy aliens back to Earth. Now we jump ahead, and the shuttle has returned to Earth, but still no communication. Now the Earth is very concerned, so they send another shuttle up to investigate, and they find the ship completely gutted. There's evidence of some kind of fire, and the crew is nowhere in sight. At least not until they enter a dark room and we get a jump scare.
I wrote the jump scare in there as well. The jump scare is sort of like a burned body that pops out there, and we get the Houston, we have a problem line dropped there as they're following in.
A decade before Apollo 13.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we got that. I did actually kind of question whether that was a like common thing that is said in sort of space launches, or where did Apollo 13 borrow that from here?
No, I think the actual real life Apollo 13
was the cause
that
of
might
that,
be an
yeah.
actual quote from that. I don't
That's
know.
fair.
Maybe.
It's looked like a fire has ripped through this whole place, and the only thing left there are those 3 bodies locked in the crystals. And being curious scientists, they're not like fucked up and freaked out about this. They decide, what are they going to do?
Well, they bring them back to Earth to examine them. under radio
sounds
silence.
smart.
Yeah, seriously. We have no clue what these things are. Let's bring them down the plane.
Yeah, this is going to be good. Let's just bring him back.
Very quickly, weird stuff starts happening. The female body's midsection starts glowing like a sexy ET. And much like the commander was, one British guard is very drawn to her. Suddenly, as he's kind of leering at her, her eyes open. Now she stands up, fully naked. Huh? And
why'd you throw a at me there?
I don't know. She walks over to the guard, takes off his helmet, and just plants one on him. This is a deep, passionate kiss, and the lights all of a sudden go haywire.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So there's this naked space alien woman there, and the guard is drawn to her not just because of the way she looks, but something is sort of taking over him. He almost doesn't have full control of himself. What happens once they start kissing, this really passionate, deep kiss?
Well, we have this kind of like glowing blue halo effect and like lightning sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see the guard, he looks totally emaciated, as if the life had just been drained out of him.
Yeah, she steals his life force. This is what's happening.
She chugs his life, man.
She chugs life right here on him. This is inspiring the beer choice here.
Yeah, now we see some kind of higher-ups. One of them, Dr. Bukowski, actually finds the guard, saw the whole thing go down on security camera, and races down there. Now he's alone in the room with the naked alien, and she goes to make out with him, too. Another British higher-up, Professor Falada, who looks kind of like a former Major League Baseball player and current Toronto Blue Jays broadcaster, Buck Martinez.
Yeah, I see
a little
that.
bit.
That's interesting.
He's got like the gray hair. Yeah. He also sees this happening and rushes down with security. When you get there, Dr. Bukowski is okay, but the girl is gone, so they sound the alarm.
Yeah, so there's a naked woman wandering around this large science/military facility. She hasn't tried to put on any clothes yet, but they're using very subtle lighting to hide her parts as she moves through this story. It's interesting. They're not afraid of showing some nudity, but they're definitely hiding parts of it as they move through, keeping it...
well, they're trying to be tasteful.
Yeah, keeping it tasteful.
Before this all happens, one of them actually says, the quote, "Don't worry, a naked girl is not going to get out of this complex. They are clearly underestimating how thirsty all these guards are."
Yeah, it is pretty dramatic how sort of focused they are on her being naked and not at all trying to do their job.
Now, they do try and stop her, to be fair, but she uses some kind of like electrical powers to take them out and blow out all the windows so she can escape. Now it's time to figure out what happened. And so we meet Colonel Kane. He's at the complex to investigate. He interviews Professor Falada. It turns out that Professor Falada, is very interested in thanatology, which is the study of death. Do you know much about this?
No, not at all. So this was sort of an interesting introduction to this idea to me. He was very much trying to figure out whether there was life after death. So he was investigating what sort of happens to the human essence and what are things that go on there. And this is sort of the first introduction to the idea that you can live beyond your current life and have other things, or life can be extended. And this is what the Doctor studies.
Yeah, it's also a dynamite chance to drop in the title of this movie because he mentions a person's life force. And I was just like, there we go. We got it. Yeah. He does propose that somehow this female alien has drained the life force from the guard. And that's bad, because if she can do that to him, she can do that to anybody. Now, the only thing that can make this worse is if the two males woke up too, which they immediately do. And as soon as they get out of those crystals, I just wrote down here, like, where are these guys from? The planet Handsome?
Yes, equally like the female character, they pick immaculate specimens or bodies to portray both the men and the women.
The one dude's jawline is just ridiculous. Just chiseled.
This is hilarious. Like, as soon as they come to life, we have soldiers shoot them like thousands of times. And then they don't die, and so they decide to fucking grenade the shit out of them.
Yeah, they try to escape, and we get the impression that maybe they do, or do they, because Colonel Kane comes in, and him and the professor find two very badly damaged bodies, and they're unidentifiable. Wink, wink. So, they assume these are the two males, but, They make it seem like the two male aliens are deceased in the explosions, but we also know that there were some soldiers around, so... Yeah, two soldiers to be exact. So I think this is kind of wishful thinking on the professor's part. Either way, they do an autopsy on the original guard, who suddenly wakes up And we get some just laughably bad creature effects here.
Oh, yeah, this is pretty rough. It's like he turns into a hilarious puppet. Like, it's got to be a puppet.
That's what it looks like,
and he tries to take the life or sort of drain the life of the people within the space or the room with him, right?
Yeah, the doctor who's performing the autopsy goes in. He's kind of drawn in as well. Looks like they're going to make out for a second. But instead, the guard just drains his life force. And when he does, he reverts back to his formerly youthful self.
Yeah, this is a horrible makeup transformation. It's very dated, of course. The idea is pretty cool, right? Like, the idea of doing this is quite cool. The doctor, after he does it, his body just shrinks up into this shriveled mess. It's kind of interesting. I like the idea behind what they're doing. It's just they didn't have the sort of technology or makeup to pull it off.
Or the budget. I think it could have been a budget thing as well. Either way, we're seeing a pattern here. This is basically a vampire situation. So after 2 hours, these bodies rise with a thirst for sweet, sweet life force. And this is spreading. They find another drained body in a park, and the professor sees the potential for disaster here. This is exponential growth, vampires making more vampires, and these creatures all need to feed, because when they don't, they explode into a pile of dust.
Yeah, this is weird, right? The explosion of the body after it doesn't get to drain from someone is quite graphic and hilarious. But what they say is that within days, we could all be doomed if this sort of transitions or it spreads in the exact same way.
Yeah, man. The British government says they have to get ahead of this thing, but they're going to need more information. And luckily, right on cue, radar picks up one of the escape pods from the Churchill shuttle. What are the odds?
Who could be in that escape pod and what could be happening? Do they have information to help solve this issue?
Yeah, man. We find out right away. It's the commander, whose name is Colonel Tom Carlson. He's back on Earth, and he's there to fill in some gaps for us, the audience, and the British government via flashback. See, it turns out that the crew started acting strange on the trip back. One of them, Rollins, I believe his name is, destroyed the ship's radio and the logs and then didn't remember doing it. And then one by one, they were found with the life drained out of them. But somehow, Colonel Carlson survived, and when he saw they were close to Earth, he tried to blow up the shuttle to stop the aliens from reaching the planet.
It was pretty funny to see that sort of explanation of how it goes. We know that clearly there's something wrong with these people in the crystals and the way it's making everyone act. He figured out it was dangerous, and what we assume at this point is he made a noble decision to try to burn it all down before he gets there.
Well, but he says it was the hardest thing he ever did. Not blowing the shuttle, though, leaving that woman.
I write down here that there's some really good music. We were getting all this symphony music that was really adding to it. But then we kind of get a shot of that spaceship from Halley's Comet, and it seems like it's diverging from the sort of path that Halley's Comet normally takes.
Yeah. We can tell this has all had a dramatic effect on the Colonel because he has a sexy nightmare in which this whole sequence is just amazing. Basically, the naked lady is there with him, and they're like making out and stuff. The dialogue is just, I can't even.
You're giving me your life.
You're taking it.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
This is ridiculous. So they're on a bed in the middle of a cemetery. They're having sex, but the sounds they're making are not pleasure sounds. There's like horror sounds coming out in the background, like the sounds you would have on a Halloween soundtrack. And then the kissing and sucking is so bad because they're trying to make you think about draining of life force. The kiss is like them sucking each other's faces so hard.
Oh, dude, she is eating his face.
Yes.
Yeah, she is just mowing on his face. It's incredible.
Like, is this a movie making incredible or is this arousing incredible?
So the Colonel wakes up screaming and... Dude, man, it's deeply erotic. Yeah. I don't know what you want me to tell you. This movie is, yeah.
Did you, in your teen years, ever see the Species series of movies?
Oh, fuck yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? I'm hoping that at some point in the future we will watch one of the Species movies because that was a big deal when we were teenagers.
While watching this movie, it brought me back to a story or a moment in my life.
Oh, where are we going with this?
So the Species movies were all about these very attractive women coming down to Earth and getting impregnated by human men. And I wondered, watching this, whether this might have been an inspiration for that kind of idea. I wondered where this comes from and if this is a part of other movies. And it made me think about going to see Species with my father.
Oh, that must have been uncomfortable.
Yeah, so as a, like, I don't know, early pubescent boy, like I was probably like 13 or 14 years old when it came out, I went to go see this movie with my dad. And the two of us went to the theater, and I think it was Species 2. It wasn't even the first one. Like, my dad must have known what we were getting into here. It was excessive. It was basically what I remember of the movie was many naked women having sex with men in hot tubs.
And you're sitting there with your dad.
Just sitting there with my dad, trying not to look at my crotch or his as we
Jesus.
move forward.
Yeah, that is a very awkward situation for sure. That is a harrowing tale.
Yeah, that's
just
probably my worst movie-going experience of my entire life. This
don't
strange
blame you.
erotic thriller as a 13-year-old with my father, and just being like, how do I have a conversation and make it not about the women like who are nude on screen having sex with all these men and then murdering them immediately?
You did the stare ahead in complete silence, right?
Absolutely. The
And
entire
your
movie.
dad did the same thing?
Oh, yeah. We both had our
Smart
own
move.
popcorn and never talked about it. I think the car ride home, we didn't talk. I think it was
That's
like,
didn't talk
we
for like
certainly
3
didn't
years
talk
after
about
that.
the movie. Yeah, maybe that was the last time I talked to my father.
That's incredible. That's the way to play it, though. I like the way you played it.
Yeah.
So, he wakes up screaming, and everyone runs in the room and wants to know what's up, but he can't remember, so they hypnotize him. Now, they figure out that he and the female vampire creature have a mental connection, but that's a two-way street, so now he can tell where she is. Now, she has switched bodies and gone into temporary hiding, but he sees her picking up some older guy, and they're going to try and track this guy down, but it might be too late. There's at least one alien vampire roaming the streets of London, and the Umbrella ship has come to Earth, so shit is getting real.
Yeah, things are really bad. We're going to soon get into some shots of London, and man, do these vampire aliens spread the need to suck life force rather quickly.
Yeah, man, it gets out of hand real fast. But before that, the team splits up, because time is of the essence, of course.
Yes.
The professor is looking at a skin sample and also tells a man on the phone to send in that soldier. Now, when the soldier arrives, he looks awfully familiar.
I wrote down, it's the alien.
Yeah, man, it's one of those extremely handsome male aliens.
Yep.
Malians?
We can call him aliens. We can just say he's mansome.
Meanwhile, Colonel Kane has traced the car, or rather the woman from the car, to a mental institution. She's a nurse there, and he, Colonel Carlson, and the British Home Secretary go there to meet the doctor who runs the facility, and that's Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, this feels like a huge stretch to me. Like, the way that they get here is super, like, circular. It doesn't make sense to me. But when I realized it was to get Patrick Stewart on screen, I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I was more confused about why the British Home Secretary is suddenly traveling there with them. Like, wouldn't a high-ranking official not go out in the field like this when there's this big situation where they might encounter a space vampire?
It's really weird. Like, this whole sort of getting to the asylum is really strange, and this is where it starts really taking some strong... I mean, it was already pretty sci-fi, but it starts taking some really heavy sci-fi roots here as we start seeing sort of the essence of people switching bodies.
And the first body, of course, is that girl. We meet her quickly, but according to Carlson, the alien has jumped into another body. She knows who it is, but is resisting. Carlson says, I can see it in her mind. So he gets ready to, like, beat it out of her? This gets, like, oddly violent.
Yeah, it's fucked up. And then there's also, like, he hits her, he takes off her clothes, and he kisses her to try to get the information out of her. Like, this whole scene is really fucked up.
Well,
And
you know what's really... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know what's really fucked up? Before he kisses her, he tells Colonel Kane he might want to wait outside if he doesn't want to see this. But Colonel Kane's response is...
Not at all. I am a natural voyeur.
What?
Yeah, I was really conflicted in this scene, but through it, he finds out that she's moved and that he thinks it's a killer who's now in solitary confinement.
Yeah, he when he makes out with her, he finds his information out and also, like, absorbs what's left of the alien, I guess. This is where the science is kind of getting a little spotty for me.
You're right. This is where it gets really high sci fiction, right? Like, we were kind of in science fiction before, but now we are really deep into this shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least they've got one answer now. They're looking for a specific inmate, And you just see him, but Patrick Stewart is kind of showing some resistance. Now they go to see this inmate, and the plan is to hypnotize him after a chemical injection, but instead, oh yeah, number 2? Mm-hmm. But instead, they grab Patrick Stewart and stick him with the needle.
Yeah, so this was the turn. I kind of suspected something was up, but I wasn't quite there. I kind of laughed at this. So they jab P. Stewart in the arm, and the essence of the like alien / vampire has now gone into Patrick Stewart, and things are getting exciting here.
Yeah, man, it turns out that she jumped into his body, which Carlson figured out when he touched him. They interrogate Patrick Stewart, and eventually her voice comes out of Patrick Stewart's mouth. And this scene is not making it into the Patrick Stewart like career retrospective reel. This is not.
No,
this is not a great scene.
This scene is definitely rough. They're kind of in like a locked. I don't even know if it's a treatment room or what it is. It feels like it's a room where they were doing things to patients that wouldn't be allowed anymore, right? It's a strange treatment area. And
old school.
Yeah, definitely old school. You see Patrick Stewart start to like scream or change, and the woman's voice starts coming to him. The overacting in here is just incredible.
It really is. If I ever meet Patrick Stewart in real life, I want to be like, I love you in Lifeforce, just to see what he would say.
I mean, I have too much respect for Patrick Stewart to even bring it up. Like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, you might get mad at me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be fun. I feel like Patrick Stewart is one of those actors that you'd want to have a drink with.
Oh, fuck yeah. Are you kidding me? 100%.
He's one of those people you would just love to hear sort of his experience. He's just been exposed to so much. I would love to sit and get Patrick Stewart to a place where he can be open and honest with me about what life has brought him, because it must be just fucking hilarious.
Sure, man. I believe it.
He has just become my number one celebrity to have a beer with. I've decided.
Nice, man. When she starts speaking of his body, she says that the aliens change their bodies based on who they meet. So when she sensed Carlson's crew approaching, she took the form of the perfect female in his mind. Now, Carlson loses it, and this, you want to talk about bad acting, this is some really bad acting.
Oof.
He starts screaming at Patrick Stewart / the female alien.
Where are you? Where's your body? Let me go! Let me go!
Yeah, I wrote this one down too. I wrote Carlson's overacting is unbelievable.
He keeps that up, though. He keeps that pace up through the whole movie. Carlson's just getting started. Like, this is not the end of Carlson.
You're right.
overacting.
This is just the you called him the hero when we started this podcast, but he is the villain of this movie for his overacting in this next 30-minute period.
Oh, stop it. We get another lightning storm because of all the shouting, and then the Home Secretary dies. Maybe so does Patrick Stewart, but we learn that it's too late. This alien plague is kind of like still spreading, so she's still out there.
Do you remember the way they described it was spreading?
I don't.
They say it's spreading geometrically.
Like in
it's
a shape
spreading
pattern?
in shapes. Yeah, it's spreading in shape patterns, guys. Holy fuck, look out, shapes.
Yeah.
I guess using the word geometrically made them feel like it was mathematical, and so like people would believe it was plausible, but when it happened, I nearly shit myself watching this movie.
You know what? I mean, they're not wrong with the fact that it's spreading, because the streets of London are just now suddenly overrun with vampires. That escalated really quickly.
Yeah, this is where we start to get the explanation that it is vampires and that they've been here before. This isn't the first time. Like, basically every time Halley's Comet comes around, they come and take a stop on Earth and drop off a few vampires or send a few back.
Well, then we get the impression that this is where the vampire like myths and stories of humanity have come from, is from these real creatures.
Yeah, from these aliens, from the bat people, I guess, right?
Yeah, they're really painting a rich picture of how this all came to pass.
It felt like it was missing something for me. Like, you're being sarcastic when you call it a rich picture, I agree, but...
I'm only being half sarcastic. I feel like they're really trying to like give this some weight.
They are, but it misses something, right? Like, it doesn't make sense that there's like, how did they get down before in previous years?
Well, and how does the planet not get overrun with vampires? Like, are you kidding me?
Like, it would have happened immediately based on the speed of transmission that's currently happening, right? So they're having this explanation of vampires, and then what happens to our man Pistu?
They're all in a helicopter, and this is where I realized that like cell phones would have just solved this whole problem. They're helicoptering to a place where they can deliver information. Now they have the next best thing. They have walkie-talkies. They get Professor Falata on the other end, and he's telling them 3 things. Number 1, the males didn't die. They switched bodies to soldiers. Number 2, This is where the ideas of vampires came from. So like we said, the story is based on these aliens. And number 3, he killed one of them by putting a sword through the energy center just below the heart. Now, as he's telling them this just then, the helicopter pilot gets a scrambled cryptogram for the Home Secretary. Now, before they can read it, blood starts pouring out of what is clearly rubber versions of Patrick Stewart's and the Home Secretary's heads. Like, this effect is really bad.
It's real bad. And as it's happening, P. Stewart starts turning into the woman, right?
Yeah, well, this blood that pours out of their heads like forms into like an animated blob and then a claymation style form of the female alien, and then it falls apart. I mean, this scene, come on.
I definitely laughed my ass off as all of this happening. I was a little upset that it happened to P. Stew in the way that it did, but I laughed really hard.
What happened to a clearly rubber molding of his head? Doesn't even look a little bit real.
I knew it wasn't real, so I was okay with it, right? Like, if I felt like Patrick Stewart was in trouble in any way, I would have shut the movie off right away, but I didn't.
So this is where Colonel Kane now has some suspicions, and he knows this is not all on the up and up. And he asks Carlson, he says, what really happened up there? Turns out that Carlson is the one who released the alien from her crystal and then destroyed the radio to cover it up. Now, in his defense, he says he was in love on a level we've never known. And I believe him. I
mean, like the sort of pull that she's had on every other person in this, right? You can understand the way that he's feeling here. It's going to be a lot for him to overcome those feelings.
She has that pull on me. I was like, back off, Kane. What's your fucking problem?
If only you were watching this with your father.
Oh, God, Jesus. Before they can dive too deep into all this, there's pandemonium on the streets of London. And I kind of was like surprised because this is a big set piece. I'm like, they must have had a decent budget for this because this whole London street over there's a ton of extras. There's all kinds of explosions. I'm like, well, it's pretty decent.
See, it's funny because I had a really different opinion about these. Like, I agree they started to show pictures of London being destroyed. We also learned that the same vampire woman was a destroyer of worlds, their words. But I felt that these scenes were super poorly done. They were horrible.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, I hated the scenes in London that felt like really ramshackle. They felt like the extras had no direction and they're just like a bunch of random people moving around. Yes, there were lots of people, but it felt like we were going from a sci-fi movie to a really cheaply done zombie film.
I could not disagree with you more. Really? I thought this was like well done. Yes.
No, so I literally in my notes was like, these scenes are garbage. I wrote down that all of those scenes of London falling apart felt really cheaply and poorly executed. And that's funny that you had a different sort of perspective. So we go from the London destroyed in these scenes, which we've got some controversy over. And where do they end up going?
Well, they land to meet the prime minister.
Yeah.
And in what can only be considered a bad sign, he looks a bit disheveled and like very sweaty. And he excuses himself from what should be like an emergency briefing to a side room with his secretary where he immediately drains her life force. He's been compromised. He's one of these vampire things. They got to the prime minister.
The prime minister's a vampire. Fucking crazy. We see it coming. The sweaty is clearly what's going on here. And they escape to a helicopter. They fucking flee the shit out of this sort of... It's weird. They kind of have a safety bunker for the prime minister and all the other people there, but shit's going bad in there. We can see everyone in there starting to turn. And so our investigators leave and head out to a helicopter on top.
Yeah, they have to kill a couple of vampires to get away. We see the city is now under martial law, and they land the helicopter at a base camp where we find out that they've contained all of London, but if the vampires breach the containment wall, they are going to send in nuclear bombs and basically like blow up England.
They're going to nuke London.
Yeah.
This is where they're at in this containment. The only way to stop it is probably to nuke it. This is where we take a transition and we find out that the ship that is hovering over, the one that kind of looks like an umbrella, is actually starting to collect the energy and or souls of humans who are there and taking them from the people of London.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know if it's right now or later on, but there's this giant like laser effect of like all these human souls being sent up there to the alien ship, and they're being sent through the female's body. And Carlson knows where she is because of their connection. In fact, she is calling to him. She wants the life force that she gave him back. And he goes. He breaks out of quarantine And, he's heading for he's allegedly heading for the Space Research Center.
And this is where does he steal a car and start driving through those streets of London?
Yeah, I mean, he steals a fucking Jeep. And so does Colonel Kane. Colonel Kane goes after him, and we get an action scene of him driving through a London street, just, thoroughly overrun with these vampires.
So this is so absurd. Like, I'm kind of connected to this movie. I'm following through the entire time. I'm trying to follow the plot lines and the logic behind how they're making decisions. And these scenes, which you enjoy, I am thoroughly angry at as he is escaping and going through. Like, I'm probably shouting at my television watching this being like, are you fucking kidding me? He's getting through all these insane areas of zombies with this car.
Okay, I will concede that him trying to drive through these streets and making it through is the most ridiculous part of this movie. He's not driving a tank. He's driving a Jeep. Like, there's so many of these zombie things. And, like, some of them are on the windshield. They're jumping on the car. Him and Carlson. Carlson's doing the same thing. They both shouldn't be able to get to where they're going. That part, I admit, is a little ridiculous. But just the scope of it, I'm kind of impressed with the visual scope.
You're impressed with the choices. So he's driving through. I think where he's headed, first of all, though, is to see Falada, to go talk to him about how to deal with these vampires, right?
Yeah, so Kane believes that Carlson is going there. I guess Carlson alluded to the fact that he was going to go back to that base. So Kane goes to the base. But Carlson is not actually doing that. Carlson is going to go meet the lady vampire. Now, while he's driving, he hears her calling to him, and he starts almost like daydreaming, which causes him to just about get mauled by all these vampires. But he drives through and makes it to the source, which is that kind of church. However, Kane, meanwhile, gets back to the Space Research Center and finds Professor Falada, but he's also acting awfully strange. He knows way more than he should have been able to find out in the 6 hours this has been going on.
Falada's a fucking genius. He knows everything about the Lifeforce.
Well,
this is what we learn here.
He's looking awfully sweaty though as well.
Oh, he knows he's done, and he communicates that to Kane and sort of tells him what he needs to do.
Right, but he also comes at him. He attacks him to try and steal his life force because now we find out Professor Falada has also become one of these vampires. So Kane shoots him, and we get a pretty decent face bubbling effect, no?
Yeah, actually, this isn't bad. He also sort of finds the weapon that Falada mentioned might be needed.
Yeah, it's like a broadsword.
Yeah, and the sword's made of a particular material that's necessary for killing vampires.
Silver, isn't it?
Yep.
Or is that werewolves?
You're right. Silver is werewolves, but it was
Iron?
It was a specific material. I don't know. We should have looked this up.
Shit, I don't know.
But it was only a particular sword made from a certain material that was going to kill these things if it was shoved through their life force.
And yet, when Kane shoots him, Professor Falada's body bursts open and explodes. All the life force comes flowing out. Either way, Kane's got the sword now, and it's time to find Carlson. Speaking of which, Carlson gets reunited with the female alien, and she tells him to come and be with me. And to be honest, I would do it. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I would have just done it. I'd have been like, yep, I'm there. Count me in.
Yeah, things are fucking falling apart in this movie real hard. We've got tons of the scenes of the sort of street and everything going wrong. We have the scenes of the blue light stealing souls, zombies chasing other people through the streets. And we know they're not zombies, but they're actually vampires. It's really bad. We have this confusing talk about Genesis, and I'm hating it.
I can't believe you're saying this is bad.
I'm hating it.
Dude, there's lots of action. There's explosions. There's screaming. There's guys on fire. There's pandemonium. I thought this was really well done.
No, so for me, it just seems like super poorly done, super cheap, and super unbelievable.
Kane is racing there right now, trying to find Carlson.
He's trying to get back. He's trying to get to the church/cemetery where these two people are, right? Where Carlson and the female vampire are.
Well, as life force is just flying everywhere through the air.
Just like this beer into my body.
Yeah, this beer's going down smooth, eh?
It's an easy drink, and I understand why it's called Chug Life. This is pretty tasty.
Yeah, buddy.
So Kane gets there with the sword, and who does he meet on the steps of this church?
He finds that the remaining male alien is blocking the door. But apparently he's so busy getting drunk on life force that Kane just walks up and stabs him.
It's
just 2 seconds.
Immediate. It's so easy. It's hilarious. And when he stabs him, what does he turn back into?
There's a brief glimpse of his true form, which is not great. Some kind of that big alien kind of bat thing.
It's the bat monsters from the start of the movie. Like, his true form is one of those fucking bat monsters that was desecrated because the three of them sucked the life out of the rest of them.
Yeah, there's a big explosion some kind of big special effects here.
It was hilarious. It was not at all believable.
Well, speaking of hilarious, Kane enters the cathedral and finds a naked Carlson just fucking banging this vampire, essentially.
You're right. So that's happening. Kane finds them just fucking. We get a scene of the two of them just deep inside each other.
Carlson fucking kills me here. Carlson pauses like to say some really dumb stuff.
What are these feelings? Why do I feel so close to you? Need you?
He's terrible. He's terrible.
It's awful. She tells him that he's always been like her.
He's one of them. Yeah.
We figure out that he is actually one of them, that his ancestors, or however he was born, were the people who were from their alien race, right? Passed down, and so that he belongs with her. There's some horrible kissing again. This is where they're fucking like sucking each other's faces again.
Oh, be with me, Carlson.
So when she yells "Be with me, Carlson," it just threw me off so hard. I was like, "Do you want your name yelled while it's happening? Like, do you want people yelling Cooper while you're doing it?"
Yes. What? Dude, are you kidding me?
You want people to be like, "Be with me, Cooper," while you're in the act?
If this girl was like, "Be with me, Cooper," I'd be like, "Fuck you, Kane. We're going out of space."
There's no way you could have stopped that, eh? You've been all in.
I don't know how he fights this off. Somehow he does. And like Kane throws down the sword to him and he stabs it through her body and his own body. And we get just a giant explosion that severs the connection to this ship.
Yeah, it's baffling. I even wrote down, why would he do that? Like, you made this case at the start, and I tried to play devil's advocate.
I wouldn't have, no.
But I don't understand why he would make that choice. Based on everything he's learned as he's gone through, why would he make the choice to end them both? He's learned that he is a part of her community, is one of them, but like, what draws him to the human race? He burned everyone alive that was a part of his space mission. He's fucked over tons of people. Why is he deciding in the very end to be like, I'm going to do the right thing and stab myself and this alien vampire woman I love?
Because he's a hero, and I am not. That's what we've learned from this episode.
So he stabs through them both. We get incredibly artsy blue to red lighting as like some sort of transition happens. And it feels like both of their essences, even though he's ended them both, get lifted to the ship.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he doesn't blow the ship up. It severs the connection, but the ship just kind of heads back to the comet, and we hit the credits. And the credits have the same music from the Blu-ray menu. This great fucking, what I call it, a classical banger. This music's incredible. And we're out of this movie. That's it, man. It's done.
Penis floats away. Credits, ship.
Penis floats away.
Did you not notice that the ship that was part of Halley's Comet was shaped like a penis?
I thought it was shaped like an umbrella.
Not when the umbrella's down. It just looks like the head of a dick.
Well, that's...
After they sucked up all the souls, the umbrella went down, and it just looked like a penis.
You're saying it's swollen with souls, is what you're saying?
Yes, it is swole with souls. So the alien penis flew off into space, swole with souls, ready to continue on the vampire legacy.
We're getting into this juvenile stuff so late in the episode.
This is what happened at the end of the movie.
Oh my God. Well, we're out, man. And that music is absolutely fucking incredible. Like, great credit music. I am just, at this point, I am all in on this. I'm like, what a fucking experience watching this movie was. We've reached the end. We got to rate this movie. And the way we always do it, we rate it twice on a scale of 1 to 10. First for how bad it is. And then again for how enjoyable it is. And the goal, as always, is to find movies that are 10 out of 10 bad, 10 out of 10 enjoyable, or as we call it, the Crit 20. And I will say that in my opinion, this movie is not nearly bad enough to be a Crit 20. I have this as a 7 bad.
Oh my goodness.
Dude,
wow.
I thought that like this is a pretty well executed like sci-fi horror movie. Like, again, we're right into the action. They quickly establish the deal. The rapid escalation, the exponential growth of this is exactly how it should work for vampires creating new vampires. I thought the sexy aliens were very plausible. I think people would be drawn to them. Listen, some of the acting is bad, but overall, like, I was like, this was a thoroughly well executed like sci-fi horror movie where there was a lot of action. There were some major kind of set pieces. Some of the effects were pretty shitty, but a lot of them were like really good. I thought this was a pretty good movie, man. I want to give it a 7 for how bad it was. What do you say?
Holy shit. This is hilarious. And I mean, I guess it goes with our conversation that we had throughout. I actually felt it was a 9 bad.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't give it a 10 bad because parts of it held together okay. I felt like some of the science fiction, especially the scenes inside of the space shuttle and some of the science in sort of the places they were decently done. I felt like they had some really some creative ideas they didn't always sort of execute in a way that I wanted. I really thought that the scenes with all of the extras in London were really poorly done. I didn't enjoy those at all.
I can't believe that.
I really disliked them. I really disliked the vampire thing at all. The fact that they made this the explanation for vampires for me took away a bunch from it. Like if they were just aliens and they weren't trying to explain the existence of vampires through an alien ship with bat people and desecration and being able to change bodies, that would have improved it a lot. Do you want me to throw out my enjoyability rating?
Yeah, man, you might as well stick with it here. You're segueing nicely. Go ahead.
I actually gave it an 8 enjoyability.
Okay.
So even though I thought it was a really bad movie, I did enjoy watching it. I thought they made some pretty fun choices in terms of the way that characters changed. I liked the explosion of characters when they weren't able to drain in Lifeforce. I thought those were really funny. I like the Patrick Stewart made an appearance in there, even if there was that ridiculous overacting scene with him and Carlson. But I enjoyed it, and I think if you haven't seen Lifeforce, like, you gotta watch this movie.
Yeah,
like,
man, exactly.
You really do. Like, you gotta watch it. It was really bad. Like, I didn't. It was really bad, but it's definitely something that if you haven't seen it, you really should. There's sometimes we come across those movies on this podcast that I had never heard about before. You bring them to me, and I would definitely tell people to go watch, and this is one of them. So I'm giving it an 8 for enjoyability. I don't regret watching it at all, and would I watch it again? Possibly.
I was going to say, oh my God, man, that's high praise.
Yeah, that is, I think.
And here's even more high praise. For me, this movie is 10 out of 10 enjoyable.
Whoa!
Dude, I thought this was fucking great. I thought this was so much fun. I had so much fun with this. It's got like everything you want from a movie experience. It's got like fucking cool ideas. It's got like gratuitous nudity. It's got action scenes. It's got Patrick Stewart. It's got a fucking banger of an end credit song. In all seriousness, like the end credits music, I left the movie feeling fucking exhilarated. I was like, oh my God. I was so, that credit music hit and I was like, fuck yeah. I have now watched this 3 times. I would easily watch it a 4th time. Huge fan of this movie. I thought it was tons of fucking fun. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's well made because it's not. There's some problems. This is why it's on our podcast. Yeah. I gave it a 7. Carlson's acting is like fucking absurd. Some of the dialogue, the way he delivers it is horrible. Again, Patrick Stewart, great to see him. Not going to make his career retrospective.
No.
And as you pointed out, the vampire thing, like kind of ridiculous because they would have overrun the planet easily any other time they did it.
Yeah, that's bullshit. It's funny that we both ended up a 17 out of 20. We both got there, which is hilarious in different ways. Definitely enjoyed it. How about the beer?
Oh man, are you kidding me? I really enjoyed this beer. If the audience can't tell, I've gotten progressively more drunk. I'm on the 3rd one of these Chug Lifes, and they are going down real smooth.
Yeah, really easy to drink. I really like the idea of a community of people making beers. I like supporting those kind of companies in Ontario as well. The craft beer can bring together some kind of cool communities, and I like that that's happening there in Chicago. Chug Life is just a super easy drinkable lager that really does touch on nicely the sort of carbonation and flavors of a champagne. It is incredible how easy it is to drink and how well they've sort of manufactured that connection between champagne and beer.
I just crushed 3 of these. I could easily crush 3 more. Like, it's a good time. So well done, Marz Brewery, Chicago. Yet another example of why I love that city.
Oh, I mean, I think that'd be a really great location to go check out. I've only ever been through Chicago on my way to other places. I've never got a chance to stop there. Love to catch some baseball and catch some craft breweries.
It is a great city. Speaking of things that are great, next week we are going to watch a movie that is beloved by many. We're going to watch The Last Dragon. Do you know this movie?
No. It sounds like a Bruce Lee kind of movie here. I was a big fan of kung fu movies in my teens. I feel like I should know this.
Are you a fan of 80s music?
Of course.
Well, then you're in luck because this is like a perfect fusion of 80s music and kung fu. This is actually kind of like a kid's movie in a lot of ways. Like, it's fun. There's a lot of like action and bright colors and an incredible soundtrack. Like, this is going to be a real experience. If you've never seen it before, you're in for a treat. That's going to be next week. If you have not already, you can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, at the BMB Podcast.
Yeah, if you want to send us any suggestions, you can slide into the DMs on our social media, or you can send us an email at thebmbpodcast@gmail.com. We love receiving those suggestions. We've done a couple this second half of the season and are starting to plan for our second season, so please send them over to us.
Yeah, we love the audience requests. Please keep them coming. Until next week, I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we'll see you next week on Bad Movies and Beer.
Keep it sucky.
In the blink of an eye, the terror begins.